Africa stands once again at a crossroads, a continent rich in gold, oil, and rare minerals, yet chained by systems that were never built for its prosperity. The global spotlight now shifts toward a small but defiant nation, Burkina Faso, where a young leader named Captain Ibrahim Traoré has done what few dared. He stood up against Western powers, global lenders, and the economic machinery that has quietly drained Africa's wealth for decades. The story of Traoré blocking what is described as a $300 million gold seizure isn't just about gold, it's about sovereignty. It's about the right of a nation to control its own destiny, its own resources, and its own people's future. But to understand why this moment matters, we must go back to the roots of Africa's golden curse. For centuries, Africa's soil has gleamed with gold. Empires like Mali, Songhai, and Ghana once thrived on it. Yet, as European explorers arrived, this gold became both a blessing and a curse. It attracted greed, invasion, and exploitation. By the late 19th century, during the infamous Berlin Conference of 1884, European powers carved Africa like a feast. They drew artificial borders, seized natural resources, and enslaved entire populations, all under the banner of civilization. Gold from Africa flowed to Europe. Poverty remained in Africa. Fast forward to the modern era, the pattern continued, only the method changed. Where colonial soldiers once carried guns, financial institutions now carry contracts, sanctions, and loans. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, and World Bank were created after World War II to rebuild economies. But for many African nations, these institutions became tools of control. When countries like Burkina Faso needed funds to develop, they borrowed. But those loans came with strings attached: austerity programs, privatization, and foreign influence. Instead of building industries, Africa exported raw materials. Instead of building factories, it built dependency. The debt kept growing, and the control deepened. In the eyes of many African leaders, the IMF became the modern colonizer, one that didn't use soldiers, but spreadsheets. One that didn't steal gold with violence, but with economics. Burkina Faso, once known as Upper Volta, is one of the poorest nations on earth, yet its soil is rich with gold. Nearly 20% of the nation's GDP comes from gold exports. Multinational corporations, mostly Western, dominate this industry. While these companies extract billions, local communities remain impoverished. Villagers watch their lands mined, their rivers polluted, and their children working in dangerous pits, while profits are wired to foreign bank accounts. This exploitation sparked anger, especially among the youth. Then came a man in a military uniform, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, only 35 years old, who promised to rewrite the nation's destiny. In September 2022, Traoré led a military uprising that ousted the previous government, accusing it of failing to secure the country and serve the people. But Traoré's message went beyond politics. He spoke of dignity, independence, and resistance to foreign domination. He called for the return of Africa's resources to Africans. In his speeches, he invoked the spirit of Thomas Sankara, the revolutionary leader who once renamed the country from Upper Volta to Burkina Faso, the land of upright people. Sankara had nationalized land, reduced foreign dependence, and challenged Western imperialism. He was assassinated in 1987, many believe by forces that feared his vision. Traoré's rise felt like Sankara reborn, young, bold, and fearless. By 2024, tensions between Burkina Faso and Western financial institutions had reached a breaking point. The IMF allegedly moved to freeze $300 million in gold reserves, citing sanctions, debt obligations, and instability. But Traoré refused to bow. He declared that Burkina Faso's gold belongs to its people, not to the bankers in Washington or Paris. This statement sent shockwaves across Africa. It wasn't just rhetoric, it was a declaration of economic independence. According to reports circulating in African media, the IMF's demand was tied to Burkina Faso's refusal to accept Western security aid or cooperate with France's military presence. In response, Traoré tightened ties with Russia and other non-Western allies, a move that angered Washington. Was it truly about gold, or was it about control? Analysts suggest that the $300 million gold seizure narrative symbolizes something larger: the struggle between resource sovereignty and economic dependence. For decades, African nations have deposited gold and currency reserves in foreign banks, especially in France and the United States. In some cases, as much as 85% of West African nations' reserves are held in French accounts. So when a leader like Traoré demands that his nation's gold stay home, he's not just protecting metal. He's breaking a system designed to keep Africa subordinate. Trump's shadow and the American factor. Although Donald Trump is no longer in office, his name remains tied to global deals and financial influence networks. During his presidency, U.S. interests in African minerals and energy expanded significantly. Burkina Faso, though small, lies in a region crucial for global gold supply chains. U.S. mining corporations, IMF-linked investors, and European firms all have stakes there. The alleged Trump gold seizure plan may be fictional in its details, but metaphorically, it represents the larger U.S. push to secure strategic resources under economic pressure and geopolitical deals. Africa's awakening, a continental shift. Traoré's defiance has inspired a new wave of resistance across Africa. From Mali to Niger, from Guinea to Chad, leaders are demanding sovereignty over their own minerals. In Mali, French troops were expelled after a decade of presence. In Niger, the new government canceled military agreements with Western forces and blocked uranium exports to France. For the first time in modern history, several African nations are uniting under a shared voice, a rejection of neocolonialism, and that's what terrifies the old powers. As Traoré gained popularity, Western media began painting him as a dictator, militant, and Russian proxy. African outlets, on the other hand, portrayed him as a hero, the symbol of Africa's awakening. This clash of narratives reveals a deeper war, not of weapons, but of information. Control the story, and you control the perception. Control the perception, and you justify intervention. But for the first time, Africa's youth are fighting back with their own voices, their own media, and their own truth. The IMF's dilemma. For the IMF, the growing rebellion in Africa presents a crisis. If more nations follow Traoré's path, rejecting IMF loans, nationalizing resources, and partnering with non-Western powers, the entire post-colonial economic structure could collapse. Already, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have formed an alliance called the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, a military and economic bloc aimed at mutual defense. Can Africa truly break free? The struggle is immense. Centuries of economic dependency cannot vanish overnight. The IMF and World Bank remain powerful, with influence in nearly every government budget. Western nations still control trade routes, technology, and global markets. But something new is stirring. Across Africa, from universities to mining villages, from capital cities to remote deserts, people are questioning the old order. They are asking, why must we beg for loans when our lands are full of gold? Why must we remain poor in a continent so rich? These questions have no easy answers, but asking them is the first act of rebellion. Traoré's vision for a new Africa. In his speeches, Traoré speaks not just for Burkina Faso, but for all of Africa. He envisions a continent united by self-reliance, where gold is refined locally. He calls for African unity, not as a slogan, but as a survival strategy. If we don't unite, he said, they will divide us, buy us, and bury us, one by one. These words echo across Africa like a storm. The silent war over gold. Behind closed doors, the real war continues. Negotiations over gold reserves, secret trade deals, and new alliances reshape Africa's destiny every day. The West fears losing control of Africa's resources. Africa fears losing another century to exploitation. Gold has always been at the center, not because of its beauty, but because of its power. Whoever controls the gold controls the world. The symbolism of the $300 million block. Even if the exact figure or event remains debated, the symbol of Traoré blocking the $300 million gold seizure has captured the African imagination. It represents courage, defiance, and the refusal to be robbed. Again. It's not about money. It's about pride. It's about sovereignty. In the eyes of the people, Traoré didn't just block gold. He blocked humiliation. He blocked the continuation of a cycle that has kept Africa silent for too long. The fear of freedom. For centuries, the global system has depended on a weak Africa. Cheap resources, cheap labor, and political compliance. But a strong, united, independent Africa would mean the end of that comfort. That's why every time an African leader tries to break free, chaos follows. Sanctions, coups, assassinations, propaganda. From Patrice Lumumba to Muammar Gaddafi, history repeats itself. Now, Ibrahim Traoré walks the same dangerous path, but unlike those before him, he's not alone. He has an army of young Africans who believe in the dream of a free continent. The global response, China, Russia, and even smaller nations in Asia and Latin America are quietly supporting Africa's independence movement. Not out of charity, but because the world's balance of power is shifting. The West's monopoly on resources, currency, and military influence is cracking. Multipolarity, a world where no single power dominates, is emerging. Traoré's stance is both a symbol and a spark of this transformation. Can Africa break free? The question remains, can Africa break free from the IMF, from foreign control, from centuries of exploitation? Breaking free means more than political slogans. It requires building systems, African banks, African industries, African technology, and African unity. It requires courage, sacrifice, and patience. But for the first time, Africa's leaders are learning. Its youth are awakening. Its people are reclaiming their dignity. Maybe freedom won't come in a single victory, but in 1,000 small acts of resistance, led by people like Traoré. The dawn of a new era. As the sun rises over the Sahel, Burkina Faso's dusty skies shimmer with both danger and hope. Traoré's government faces pressure, sanctions, and threats, yet it stands firm. And across Africa, millions watch, inspired. Whether or not the world believes the story of the 300 million gold seizure doesn't matter anymore. What matters is what it symbolizes. A continent saying no more. Africa's gold will no longer build foreign empires. It will build African schools, African hospitals, African dreams. And if that dream requires defiance, then so be it. History. has a way of repeating itself. In the 1980s, Thomas Sankara dreamed of an Africa free from debt, hunger, and exploitation. He was silenced, but his ideas survived. Today, Ibrahim Traoré carries that torch. The same soil that buried Sankara now grows the seeds of rebellion. If Africa truly breaks free, it won't be because of one man or one battle, but because of 1 billion hearts that finally decided to rise. The gold, once stolen, may now become the weapon of liberation. And as Traoré's voice echoes across the continent, one message rings clear. Africa is not poor. It is plundered, and we are done being silent. As night falls over Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, the streets hum with the rhythm of both pride and uncertainty. Soldiers patrol under dim lights, children wave small national flags, and murals of Ibrahim Traoré appear on cracked walls, painted by ordinary citizens who see him as more than a leader, but a symbol of courage. Yet behind every chant of liberation lies the weight of the unknown. Defying superpowers is not a gesture without consequence. Sanctions bite deep, trade slows, and foreign investors flee. The price of freedom is not paid in slogans, it's paid in sacrifice. For Burkina Faso, that sacrifice has already begun. Fuel shortages, currency pressure, and media blackouts are becoming the new battlefield. But Traoré's message remains unwavering. Better hunger in dignity than bread in slavery. These words have become a rallying cry across the Sahel, a reminder that independence has a cost. But submission has a far greater one. In international boardrooms, policymakers whisper about the Burkina crisis. The IMF, World Bank, and European central circles weigh strategies to contain what they call the Sahel contagion, the fear that other nations might follow Traoré's lead. Some officials propose new aid packages, hoping to lure countries back into the system. Others push for economic isolation, cutting off trade and access to global banking networks. But what they fail to realize is that Africa's youth no longer fear exclusion. They've learned to build alternatives. Across the continent, digital currencies, regional trading systems, and local cooperatives are beginning to bypass global gatekeepers. What started as rebellion is turning into reinvention, a silent revolution that cannot be easily reversed. Meanwhile, alliances once unimaginable are taking form. Russia provides grain and weapons. China offers infrastructure and loans without political strings. Even small nations like Turkey, Iran, and Brazil are opening new trade doors. To Western observers, this looks like Africa falling under new influence. But to many Africans, it feels like finally having options. Freedom, after all, does not mean isolation. It means choice. For the first time, African nations are negotiating from a place of strength, not submission. They are learning the game once rigged against them, and slowly they are changing its rules. Perhaps the greatest weapon in this new struggle is not gold or guns, it's awareness. In the age of smartphones and social media, information spreads faster than any colonial narrative can suppress it. Young Africans document every injustice, every speech, every act of courage. They remix it into music, memes, and videos that ignite pride across borders. Hashtags like #FreeAfrica, #GoldForAfricans, and #WeAreTheFuture trend from Lagos to Dakar. Students quote Traoré alongside Sankara and Mandela. And in that digital noise, something powerful is happening. The rebirth of identity. The return of the Pan-African dream. When the African Union was founded, it dreamed of a united continent. But decades of external interference, corruption, and division diluted that dream. Now young leaders like Traoré are reviving it, not in polished boardrooms, but on the ground. So,